WHGE 95.3 FM. Coming up, the Open Eye.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual
Sherry, I see
the pleasure of mental masturbation.
All right. Good morning.
We do so because the chains of oppression on our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host, Third Eye Optometrist, Patrice Gibbs, here to get your eye open. There's a lot going on. Yeah, I know, I came in a little late, but I'm here, and when I'm here, I'm on time. And as we always tell you, every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. Let me get my disclaimer out the way. On the right. Where is it? There it is.
The views and opinions expressed on the Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM, nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
All right. Hey, I'm a big music fan. Yeah, and I'm a fan of James Brown. And in spite of some of the things he's done and what have you. I tell you, he had a band member who still hasn't gotten the recognition that he probably deserves, okay? And anybody knows anything about James Brown know this cat was instrumental in his success and some of his major hits. And this guy should be, and I've heard people call for it to happen, he should be inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm talking about the funky drummer himself, Clyde Stubblefield. Stubblefield, of course, was best known for his work with James Brown. He recorded and toured for 6 years. His syncopated drum patterns on James Brown's recordings are considered funk standards. Sample of his drum performances, particularly his break in the 1970 track Funky Drummer, were heavily used in hip-hop music beginning in the 1980s, although Stubblefield frequently received no credit. Because Funky Drummer is really the foundation of hip-hop. Stubblefield is a self-taught musician. He is influenced by the sound of industrial rhythms he heard in factories and trains. He began playing with local groups in his native Tennessee and later moved to Georgia, where he played with musicians such as Eddie Kirkland and Otis Redding in the early 1960s before joining James Brown's band. He later settled in Madison, Wisconsin, where he was a staple of the music scene. He has been named among the great drummers of all time by various publications. In 2017, he accepted an honorary degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. In 1965, James Brown saw Stubblefield perform in Macon, Georgia, and asked him to an audition. Soon after he joined James' band, over the next 6 years, the band had 2 drummers, Stubblefield and John Jabbo Starks. And Starks said that Stubblefield was an influence on him. Starks joined the band 2 weeks after, 2 weeks after Stubblefield joined James Brown's band. Stubblefield's recordings with James Brown are considered to be some of the standard bearers for funky drumming, including the singles Cold Sweat, the first official funk song. I Got the Feeling, Give It Up, Turn It Loose, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, Mother Popcorn, Get Up, Get Into It, Get Involved, There Was a Time, Ain't It Funky Now, and of course, The Funky Drummer. His rhythm pattern on James Brown Funky Drummer is among the world's most sampled musical segment. It has been used for decades by hip-hop groups and rappers such as Public Enemy, Run DMC, NWA, LL Cool J, the Beastie Boys, and Prince. And has also been used in other genres. Though the sole creator of his pattern, Stubblefield was not credited for use of the samples. He was featured in the 2009 PBS documentary, Copyright Criminals, which addressed the creative and legal aspects of sampling music. And he should be inducted. So Stubblefield died in February of 2017 at the age of 73. He will forever be recognized as the Funky Drummer. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Hey, Tony, I see you. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM. All right. You know, it's something that one of the things that comes out of history, falsified in history, is that white women were passive or unwilling participants in the slave trade. Nothing could be further from the truth. 40% of enslaved people were owned by women. Female slave owners weren't gentler. They ordered brutal whippings, sold children from mothers, and sexually exploited enslaved men just as ruthlessly as the white men did. The delicate Southern belle was often a calculating businesswoman who measured human worth in dollars. White women weren't just passive beneficiaries of slavery, they were active architects with bloody hands conveniently erased from our national memory. Let me tell you something. How deep their involvement was. It was so egregious that they had to make up a law to protect the white women who were just constantly, brutally killing their black slaves. Now, there was no consensual relationship between the slave people and their masters. No matter if you claim the people involved were in love. Not so. The power balance, what's going on here? Okay. Excuse me. The power imbalance was too significant. There is no way to tell if the relationship contained love or submission. There's no love. One person owned the other as property, an asset they could do with as they wished. And they would. Tell you about the Casual Killing Act of 1669 was written to protect rich white women from legal punishment. White women were killing the defenseless mixed-race children of their husbands and enslaved women. And they was getting busy with it. The women in Virginia were killing the mixed-race children in horrific ways. They were angry that their spouses were having plenty of children outside their marriages. The small children were routinely boiled, skinned, tortured, and beaten to death. Casually killed. The problem was the authorities did not want to chastise the rich white women, not that the children were being killed. After all, child slaves were the property of their families to be done with as they wished. What escapes many people is that the whimsical killing of enslaved blacks in the U.S. during slavery and even after by white folks without punitive consequences is based on laws passed by white politicians who happen to be plantation owners as well. One such devious act, as I mentioned, was the Casual Killing Act. The Casual Killing of slaves says that if a slave dies while resisting his master, the act will not be presumed to have occurred with prepense malice, as if they didn't mean to do it. You just heard me say they were bullying them, skinning them. Yeah. The men of the General Assembly of Virginia completely removed the penalty for those who by chance murdered a slave in the process of punishment, as the black laborer was deemed to be property. Casually killing. And these are the same white women that are raising white supremacists now. Yeah, it's something you hear. People chastise black women. You know, some of their sons, wind up in jail and involved in the drug trade and what have you. But what about the white women that are raising monsters that go around casually killing people? What about the white women that are raising serial killers? That are raising the ones behind the guns in these school killings? What about the white women that were protected by the Casual Killing Act? This is Open Eye, WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist. You know, people are always saying, it's not about race, it's the system. That's the enemy. Yet, white men are 31% of Americans, 66% of police officers, 95% of prosecutors, and 65% of all elected officials. Let me tell you about some of these creeps white women raised. A California judge has ruled that a civil case to determine whether police officers use excessive and unreasonable force when they fatally shot a W amputee after dumping him from his wheelchair will be settled by a jury. A W amputee dumped out of his wheelchair. The case stems from a deadly police encounter involving 36-year-old Anthony Lowe, a W amputee who was shot 11 times by police officers in Huntington Park, California, according to a lawsuit filed by Lowe's family. On January 26, 2023, police responded to a call about a reported stabbing and encountered Lowe, who matched the suspect description dispatchers got from the 911 caller. When responding, police officers Munez and Joshua WHGE directly confronted Lowe. Lowe tried moving away, but one of them grabbed the back of his wheelchair and dumped him to the ground. That's what the family's lawsuit states. According to the judge's ruling, a knife also fell out of the wheelchair, which Lowe grabbed after he righted himself on the ground and kept moving away from the officers. The judge's ruling states that officers took aim at Lowe with stun guns and firearms, and Lowe died after being struck by multiple bullets. Let me guess, you fear for your life. Days after the shooting, police said that Lowe ignored verbal commands and threatened to advance or throw the knife at the officers. Boy, y'all some punk-ass cowards. The man's a W amputee on the ground. Officers deployed 2 separate tasers in an attempt to subdue the suspect, but the tasers were ineffective. The suspect continued to threaten officers with the butcher knife, resulting in an officer-involved shooting. However, cell phone video taken by a passing motorist shows Lowe grabbing the knife and hobbling away from the police while the officers have their weapons drawn. Surveillance footage also shows the moments when the officer threw Lowe from his wheelchair onto the sidewalk and when Lowe began distancing himself from the cops. So basically what really happened was they ran up on this W amputee in a wheelchair, dumped him out the chair, the knife fell by the side of him. He knew his life was in danger and he grabbed the knife. Of course, Rowe's death prompted protests over the excessive force used on a disabled person. I felt there's other people that care, that they see some wrong in this, because this was wrong, the mother of Lowe's 15-year-old son, Ebony Simon, said. The family complaint states that Lowe was suffering a mental health crisis at the time, as he was still grappling with the recent amputation of both his legs. He was supposed to receive prosthetics the month after he was shot and killed. The family contends that even though Lowe was holding a knife during the encounter, he kept retreating from the officers, who were more than 6 feet away from Lowe when force was used. They argued that Lowe posed no imminent threat to their safety or the safety of the public before he was fatally shot. Testimonies from witnesses and another police officer corroborated the family's claims that Lowe wasn't a danger to the public. The witness testified that he saw Lowe being knocked from his wheelchair and that he was scared, trying to escape. There's absolutely no reason to shoot a W amputee in the back 11 times who was hobbling away from officers. Both officers and the public were not at threat. He was a handicapped person suffering from a mental crisis. Now, that's from Sister Sherry. And Sister Sherry said, that reminded me of Mario Woods in San Francisco, the son of a classmate. The San Francisco Police Department surrounded him and executed him in front of dozens of witnesses. And this is what they're going to do, especially with the armed disaster declaring that he's going to give them immunity. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. all right? Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist here. Yeah. This is why Republicans don't want to pay teachers. Better pay equals better teachers. Better teachers equals a better education. Better education equals smarter voters, and smart voters don't vote Republican. Oh, how could you say that? Are you kidding me? Yeah. Okay. What are your thoughts on socially engineering conflict? This is not a drill. Trump's Day One order sets the stage for martial law by Tony Pentamali. Now check this out, y'all. Dig this. On January 20th, 2025, while the press focused on the optics of Donald Trump's indoor inauguration, something far more dangerous was set in motion, off camera, away from ceremony, and beneath the radar of a public lulled by spectacle. Trump signed an executive order declaring a national emergency at the southern border. But the most alarming part, well, it gave the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security just 90 days to deliver a joint report on whether he should invoke the Insurrection Act. Excuse me. That deadline is April 20th. This wasn't about immigration. It was about power. The Insurrection Act, passed in 1807, gives the president the authority to deploy the U.S. military on American soil. That means troops in our cities. That means bypassing governors. That means suspending protest rights. That means the death of democratic dissent under the false pretense of restoring order. And Trump's not hiding it. He's preparing it. We've seen this before. In June 2020, after the murder of George Floyd, millions of Americans rose up in protest. Trump didn't respond with compassion. He called for domination. When the military hesitated to invoke the Insurrection Act, Trump sent federal forces to violently clear peaceful protesters from Lafayette Square so he could wave a Bible in front of a church. Not an ounce of remorse followed. He was angry the generals didn't go far enough. This time he made sure they won't hesitate. Since returning to power, the Orange disaster has purged the Pentagon of independent thinkers. In their place, loyalists. Like the incompetent WEI appointee, WEI. Was it White? Something incompetent. Peter Hegseth. Totally incapable, incompetent. Tulsi Gabbard runs intelligence. Is that like an oxymoron? To have a idiot? Yeah, running the intelligence department. And of course, Junior Vice President J.D. Vance, who is openly on board with using military force against Americans on American soil. Then on March 19th, these three, Vance, Gabbard, and Hegseth, staged a photo op at the southern border. Not a routine visit, not a strategy session, a performance. Think about it. Why would the vice president, the head of the military intelligence, and the defense secretary all need to go to the border together? Why make a media spectacle of it? Because it wasn't about the border, it was about the optics. It was about laying the emotional groundwork for invoking the Insurrection Act. They were building the narrative. We have to act. We had no choice. The crisis was too big. And what comes next? In June 2025, Trump goes on national TV and declares the Democratic cities are under siege by radicals and illegals. Remember that. He signs the Insurrection Act order. Troops hit the streets of Atlanta, Chicago, Philadelphia. Protesters are arrested under emergency provisions. Journalists are detained. Social media accounts vanish. Immigrants are swept into detention centers. The press is told to stand down. The public is told to shut up. And it's all legal. Some of you might think he's bluffing. The military won't go along. The courts will stop him. Yeah? Really? Were they bluffing with federal agents brutalized peaceful protesters in Lafayette Square? Did the military refuse? No. The National Guard was deployed. Many in uniform carried out the order. It was only later that a few expressed regret after the damage was done. No, look, I was just following orders. I told you last week. I was just following orders. That excuse was not accepted at the Nuremberg trials. Did the court stop January 6th? No. They prosecuted rioters after the fact. But the attack happened. Congress fled. Democracy was nearly strangled live on TV. Did they stop the family separation policy? No. Thousands of children were taken from their parents before courts intervened, long after the trauma was inflicted. Did they stop the Muslim ban? No. The Supreme Court upheld it. Entire families were stranded or banned simply because of where they came from. Did they stop ICE raids or CBP abuses? Rarely. A handful of rulings, a few headlines, but the system kept grinding unchecked and cruel. So if you're waiting for the system to save us, you're waiting for something that has already failed. The April 20th report is coming. It recommends using the Insurrection Act, and let's be honest, it will. Trump will frame it as a reluctant but necessary move. He'll say he tried everything else. He'll claim it's about protecting America. Yeah. But what he's really protecting is his own authority. This is how authoritarianism arrives. Not with tanks, but with legal memos, press events, and a scared public hoping someone will stop it. So what do? We speak now, loudly and forcefully. Call your representatives and demand they investigate Trump's January 20 order. Push the media to report on the Insurrection Act report before it's too late. Demand public statements from military and intelligence leaders. Now, not after. Organize, educate, resist. If you never joined a protest before, this is the moment. If you never spoken up politically, this is the time. If you never thought it could happen here, it already is. The threat isn't coming, it's here. And silence is exactly what Trump is counting on. That's why Tony Pentamali, who is a political analyst, commentator, fighting for democracy, economic justice, and social equality. Yeah. If you never joined a protest before, this is the moment. Good morning, my children of the sun. This is April 5th, the day that has been called for protests all over the country. Yeah. And what I tell you last week, stay your black ass home. There have been protests going on. You haven't seen much about it on the news. And I tell you what, when these protests have taken place, the police ain't show up in riot gear. They ain't abused the peaceful protesters. They let them do their thing. Go on and march. Go on and protest. Why? Because there were no black people there. You know, you had some of these people, white people on the left, that are calling for us to join these protests. Stay your black ass home. Don't you do it. Because remember, just like I said what was his name? Tony Pentamale's essay on this. In Lafayette Square, where the protests were peaceful, the cops showed up in riot gear and military equipment with tear gas and rubber bullets. Black people on the front line marching peacefully were met with violence and abuse. This is what they want. I'm sure that Tony Pentamale is sincere in his belief in what he said. But I'm still telling you, stay your black ass home. April 5th. It's a day of rest for black people. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. All right. Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist here. Yeah, I mean, stay your black ass home. Because right now, it's not our fight. We fought when we went to the booth on November 5th. That was when our fight was. There is effectively no Republican Party anymore. There's a radical movement to destroy the modern American state and eviscerate the institutions in favor of restoring a mythical Elysian majority white 19th century past. It's from Andrew Sullivan. A mythical Elysian majority white 19th century past. These people are voting and hoping and that the Orange Disaster and his minions and his regime are going to bring back the good old days. Yeah, 19th century past. Mythical. When most of you, unless you were rich, were living in poverty, abject conditions. This is not a new world. It is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advances, and a more sophisticated approach to the destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the super states that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy, and truth is a menace. That's from Rod Serling, from The Twilight Zone, The Obsolete Man. And as we move on, the Orange Disaster, the blooming idiot, Yeah. Let me hit I'm gonna hit the mic right here one time. And I said blooming idiot, I meant fucking idiot. Yeah. Don't worry, the FCC didn't get me. I turned the mic off when I said that. Oh my effing God. Yeah. Oh, he's gonna put tariffs on everybody. Remember the character in the Denzel Washington movie where he played a cop? I can't think of the movie right here. I'm putting tariffs on all you MFers. That's what the Orange Disaster said. Elon Musk told him to say it. Elongated muskrat. This fool then put tariffs on 2 islands, I think in near Antarctica, is it? There are no people there. Who you gonna put tariffs on? They ain't important enough for us. Yeah, in absolutely shocking development, Canada announces it will build a coalition of countries who share their values to build their economy and trade opportunities and will exclude the United States. If the U.S. no longer wants to lead, Canada will. The administration has ruined our reputation. Yeah. Sister Sherry, yeah, I think it was a herd in McDonald Islands. Who you putting tariffs on? Penguins? What penguins export? Cuteness? Yeah. Well, it wasn't easy, but the Orange Disaster did it. He ended the several hundred-year friendship between the U.S. and Canada, our neighbor and closest ally. Isolationism is a dumb ideal, but going out of your way to get countries around the world to actually hate us is even stupider. It's a quote from Bernie Sanders. It's huge. Canada just walked away from the United States. We ended our economic and security ties with Trump's America, but it was historically stunning nonetheless. Not in some passive we're disappointed way. Not a strongly worded letter, not a polite diplomatic eye roll. No, Prime Minister Mark Carney gave a full breakup speech on live TV. Yeah. Somebody, what did you say, Steve? Somebody, hey, what's up, Steve? I hear penguins taste like chicken. I don't know. And Sherry said those penguins are guilty of exploiting regurgitated fish. Damn. Yeah, Mark Carney gave a full breakup speech on live TV. He went on to say, the era of deep economic security and military ties between Canada and the United States is over. And just like that, 150 years of the world's most peaceful, mutually beneficial, boring, but beautiful border relationship done. Dismantled by one orange blowhard rapist felon cosplaying as a capable president when he's just a Russian asset in an effing diaper. His stinky butt son. This comes after Trump allegedly tried to set up a phone call with Carney, to which Carney said, nah. Donald Trump, in what might be the most unhinged foreign policy week since Buy Greenland, slapped a 25% tariff on Canadian auto imports. Called Canada a national security threat. And floated the idea of annexing us as the 51st state. Yes, annexing. Putin light. Except fatter and with worse grammar. Then when Canada pushed back by deepening economic ties with the European Union, Trump jumped on Truth Social and typed this out of his whole chest. Canada is trying to undermine America. If they think they can partner with the EU against us, there will be harsher sanctions. Canada and Europe, be warned. Carney called the bluff today most soberly and seriously. Canada isn't taking a break for its economic and security alliance. We're torching it and betting on ourselves with a few other democratic superpowers not led by an effing dotard Putin puppet. Today, Mark Carney made the most consequential announcement of any Canadian prime minister in modern history. Visibly pissed but composed, he said enough was enough. We have to look out for ourselves, and we will do that. He wants to break us so America can own us, and it will never, ever happen. We will defend our workers, we will defend our companies, we will defend our country. It felt less like a press conference and more like Churchill with better lighting. That wasn't a press conference, that was the world history in the making. A moment that will come to define us as the world's biggest energy superpower. And it will be done in an unimaginably short period of time because it has to be. Canada will do things not thought possible. And we're here. So it has to get done. Trump did this. Not Canada, not Mark Carney. However, maybe we should think about sending him a gift basket. Because the butterfly effect of having the dumbest fascist alive be the 47th president of the United States. The global fallout. This wasn't just a press hit. It was a geopolitical earthquake. Here's what happened in just 12 hours. The Canadian dollar surged as markets responded to Carney's leadership and a pivot toward Europe. The Dow dropped 700 points after U.S. automakers panicked over retaliatory tariffs and global realignment. EU leaders released a joint statement backing Canada and fast-tracking trade, a defense integration. American allies from Germany to Japan are quietly freaking out, not just because Canada left, because it finally did what they've been all thinking. Canada is now the first country on earth to formally sever close ties with Trump's America. And it's about damn time. There was something I was thinking about just then. Points, Canada, fast trade, allies quietly freaking out. Wow. Because this is what they all been thinking. The global fallout. Yeah. That's right. America's no longer leader of the free world. Looks like Canada's going to be on. Damn. You know, that's what I was thinking about. With the Trump regime led by elongated muskrat, they act like they're some kind of corporate raiders. And the corporation that they took over and they're raiding and they're going to destroy is the corporation of America. Yeah? And it goes on. And it goes on. One has to say, wow. Who posted this? Brother Haru. Brother Jadea. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce her name. Sounds Jewish. Okay. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum responded to Trump's threats with a backhand. Check this out. So you voted to build a wall. Well, dear Americans, even if geography isn't your strong suit, Since you consider America a country rather than a continent, you should know that beyond that wall, there are 7 billion people. The word people might not resonate with you. Let's call them consumers. These 7 billion consumers can switch from iPhones to Samsung or what's that, Huawei in less than 2 days. They can swap Levi's for Zara, a Massimo Dutti, and within 6 months replace Ford, Chevrolet, with Toyota, Kia, Mazda, Honda, Volvo, Subaru, Renault, or BMW, brands that often outperform in quality. They can cancel DirecTV, and though they might not want to, they can stop watching Hollywood films in favor of higher quality productions from Latin America or Europe, which offer richer narratives and better cinematography. Believe it or not, people can skip Disney and instead visit the Xcaret Resort in Cancun or explore destinations in Mexico, Canada, South America, and Europe. In Mexico, you'll find better hamburgers than McDonald's with superior nutritional value. Have you ever seen pyramids in the U.S.? Egypt, Mexico, Peru, Guatemala, and Sudan all have ancient wonders. None of them in the U.S. If they did, Trump would probably have bought and sold them by now. We know that Nike isn't the only sneaker brand. There's Adidas and even Mexican brands like Panam. We understand the economy more than you think. And we also know that if these 7 billion consumers stop buying American products, unemployment will rise and your economy trapped within its self-imposed wall will crumble to the point where you'll beg us to tear it down. We didn't want to do this, but you wanted a wall. Well, you got one. Okay? Yeah. That wasn't just a backhand slap. That was a smack all upside your head. You ever see somebody get smacked in here and start running, the person smacking them, chase them on down the street and smack them up good? That's what President Claudia Sheinbaum just did. And her approval ratings are at historical levels, with one recent poll putting her support at 85%. Yeah. What I say last week? 80 million stupid ass Americans. Imagine being so stupid that you look at this treasonous, traitorous, totally corrupt, self-serving, ignorant clown, this racist, semi-illiterate moron, this pathologically lying, feeble-minded, morally bankrupt, constitutionally illiterate simpleton with bloated knitwear and his cotton candy hair, radioactive tinted skin, and obese, to shove him it and think, yeah, that's the guy I admire. Yeah, that was from this white chick. I forgot her name, but boy, and what's that last part? His radioactive and obese body. You shove him in his poopy diapers. And you think, yeah, that's the guy I admire. Damn. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM, Open eye coming right at you here. Wait a second. Make sure what we got there. Yeah, okay. I want to get this set up before I get back to y'all. Okay. Here's something that I warn people of. All right. Is the N-word is regional. Okay. This is a warning to the mayonnaise mafia. The N-word is regional. You might have got an N-word pass. But that N-word pass is only valid with the person that gave you the pass. Oh, you can go out and say it to whoever you want. Results may vary. Yeah. Results may vary. This is from Touré. All right. He told the story. Check this out, y'all. If someone calls you the N-word with the hard R, like totally maliciously, do you have the right to unalive them? Let me tell you a story. This is a true story. The year is 2022, and 27-year-old Corey Pujols is a manager at Dunkin' Donuts in Tampa, Florida. One day, 77-year-old Vinell Cook, a white man, went through the drive-thru. He was a regular at that Dunkin' Donuts. And he didn't like his experience. And he told the people in the drive-thru that he was unhappy with something about his experience. And then he parked his car and came into the restaurant and told them again about how he was unhappy about some aspect of his experience. Oh, Vinell found himself arguing with Corey Pujols and called him the N-word. Corey came from behind the counter and got face to face with him and said, "Don't say that again." He did. He called that young black man the N-word with the hard R again. It's not just a word. That word is violence. It's an assertion of white superiority. So after Vinell called him the N-word again with the hard ER, Corey punched him in the jaw as one does. Vinell, 77, fell back, then hit his head on the ground. He died 3 days later. Corey got house arrest, probation, and no jail time. The prosecutor said the plea deal considered the totality of the circumstances, including the despicable slur used by the victim. The prosecutor said it would be hard to convince a jury that a person not allowed to hit someone who instigated a confrontation by storming into their business and barking the most aggressive and inflammatory term in the English language in their face. So right there, he's saying the N-word is a particularly triggering and horrific word in its language. In this language, it is violence. Perhaps alone among all words, it is the most violent word we have. And if you swing that at somebody, they are in self-defense after that. Like I said, your N-word pass is reachable. Yeah. And it's only valid with the person that gave you the pass. Why would you want to say it anyway? Because it's not cute or funny. And there's a rule when you're saying it to antagonize someone. Watch how you antagonize. Well, it's something that A lot of people will hear that. A lot of the mayonnaise mafia will hear that and say that that was reverse racism. He was treated unfairly. That man killed him. Like I said, the most violent word in the English language. And what do you get from these type of people that would say it was reverse racism and this, that, and the other? It makes me think of what this guy who was a black guy who was a Uber driver picked up this white man. The white man wanted to talk politics. He said, "No, I'm here to give you a ride. That's all, just here to give you a ride. Not interested in your politics." He said, "Yeah, you must have voted for Harris. That's okay. Trump is in there now. You're going to put all these Mexicans out and put you black people back in your place." He's one of those people who run around shouting, "Go back to Africa." Let's take a look at that. Shaka Bar's sister on, I think, TikTok is where she's at. She said, since there's so many of y'all on here talking about go back to Africa, you should go, blah, 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 blah. She decided to ask ChatGPT, what would happen if all black Americans left the U.S. and returned to Africa? And one thing ChatGPT do not do is lie, baby. So this is what ChatGPT said, GPT. It's food for thought for everyone who's saying, go back to Africa. So first, black Americans make up 14% of the U.S. population and contribute significantly to healthcare, education, sports, entertainment, government, and a sudden departure will create significant labor shortages. That's one. Two, black Americans contribute over $1.7 trillion annually to the U.S. economy. A departure like that would create a sudden loss of economic power. Three, black-owned businesses which employ millions of Americans will shut down or relocate, shifting the wealth to whatever country all of us went to. Four, now this one really going to piss some people off. Especially those from, well, specifically those from the mayonnaise mafia. Number four, loss of cultural influence. Black Americans are, quote, black Americans have shaped U.S. culture through jazz, hip-hop, and blues, fashion, language, sports. Their departure will significantly alter America's cultural identity. And here's where it gets good again. There would be a decline in innovation. Blacks foster creativity and innovation. The loss of racial diversity could slow technical or technological advances. See, y'all, ancestors ain't tell y'all how sick y'all was. See, before y'all found us, y'all was fighting each other. Ain't nobody passed that information on to y'all. Y'all don't know about all that. See, I have people pass information on y'all. Y'all people wanted to be lost in translation. But we know. And we now live in a tree. We know. Y'all don't. WHGE 95.3 FM. Dope and I. Just wondering, what if we realized what a precious commodity time really is and began to use it wisely?
What if we came to understand the ramifications behind the fact that if African Americans were a nation, we would be the 10th richest nation in the world? What if we got reparations? Will we know what to do with the money? What if we stop studying our history as a yearly celebration of our struggle? What if we begin to study our history from a sociological perspective and apply the theories and philosophies that made the ancient black man the progenitor of civilization? What if we begin to understand that the mind is the most powerful weapon we possess? What if we began to fill that most powerful weapon with the ammunition of the knowledge of progressive revolution instead of following the ignorance of reactionary regression? What if the coming generation can see the old guard leadership for what it is? Complacent, self-serving, more interested in quick fix glories instead of long-term solutions. What if we stop getting caught up in externals and realize baggy jeans and a tattoo will not make you thugged out if you're not a thug? A suit and tie won't gain you any mainstream access at the bank if you can't verbalize the alphas and omegas of finance. And a trip to your local African boutique will not make you black to the cause. What if we all knew the powerful effect the black man has on the world? We're only 10% of the American population, yet we influence every facet of American culture and life. In sports and entertainment, technology and business, fashion, music, style, attitude, even language. It's commonplace for mainstream network reporters to use the term diss, hip-hop slang, and disrespect. Every fact. That's power. I don't know. I was just wondering, what if?
WHGE 95.3 FM. This is The Open Eye. Patrice Gibbs, third eye optometrist. The quote: our Congress passes laws that subsidize corporations, farms, oil companies, airlines, and houses for suburbia. But when they turn their attention to the poor, they suddenly become concerned with balancing the budget. And that's on both sides. That's a quote from Coretta Scott King. Yesterday was April the 4th. I was 7 years old, April the 4th, 1968. I can remember Mom was in the kitchen cooking. My sister was outside playing. I was looking at TV and the news came on that Dr. King had been assassinated. I called my mom. I didn't really know who Dr. King was. I just knew he was somebody important because whenever he was on, we had to be quiet. I remember my mother dropping the plate. I heard it crash and come running. Here we are 57 years after his death, and King remains a prophet without honor in the institution that nurtured him, the black church. How could you say that? Yeah. At the time of Dr. King's death, the vast majority of black churches considered him a troublemaker. And he was not welcome in many black churches. Now, they pay mealy-mouthed, pious irrelevancies to his legacy a couple of times a year, but do not speak truth to power, as Dr. King did. Most well-known black ministers are more concerned with prosperity preaching instead of liberation theology, which is not profitable. Let me tell you something. This is why they were afraid of Dr. King. This is an excerpt from a speech that Dr. King gave in August of 1967 at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. King said, this is an excerpt from it. I want to say to you as I move to my conclusion, as we talk about where do we go from here, that we honestly face the fact that the movement must address itself to the question of restructuring the whole of American society. There are 40 million poor people here. And one day we must ask the question, why are there 40 million poor people in America? And when you begin to ask that question, you're raising questions about the economic system, about a broader distribution of wealth. When you ask that question, you begin to question the capitalistic economy. And I'm simply saying that more and more, we've got to begin to question about the whole society. We are called upon to help discourage beggars and life's marketplace. But one day, we must come to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring. It means that questions must be raised. Do you see, my friends? When you deal with this, you begin to ask questions. Who owns the oil? You begin to ask the question, who owns the iron ore? You begin to ask the question, why is it that people have to pay water bills in a world that is 2/3 water? These are questions that must be asked. That's the Dr. King that they don't quote. WHGE 95.3 FM, Dope and I. Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist here. Yes, indeed. Hope you learned something today. I learned something before I came in here. Try to pass it on. And as we always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. This has been Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs. Thanks for joining us. All right. Yeah, thanks for joining me. Sorry I was a little late. Trying to work on that, but so much to do in the morning. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's word. If you join me, I'm sure you had a good time. I want to thank those for the great stuff that you post, like Chuck Tarver, of course, my homegirl, Sherry Bryson, Brother Vaughn, and Brother Jardea, and Sister Tracy. Thank you all for joining me. And like I always tell you, global African supremacy. The world was a much better place when the African ruled. I'm Patrice Gibbs.